Today's episode of the Punk Rock Horror Podcast is brought to you by Snubbed Records. Hey, ghouls, gals, creeps, and mutants, Matt here. Real quick before we jump into today's episode, I want to talk to you about our latest sponsor, Snubbed Records. Snubbed Records is a record company that not only signs some amazing punk rock bands, but also makes some delicious, delicious coffee. With such bands under their name, though, such as the Queers Independence, Statues on Fire, and even Savage Remains and the Sick Boys, they have been making their name themselves from having so much amazing bands and also, again, having amazing coffee. So what they're doing right now to try and help everyone during the stay-at-home quarantine crisis is giving all of you amazing listeners the chance to go and listen to some amazing albums for free. That is right, for free, that you might not get anywhere else at all. So the way to do this is super simple. You just go over to snubbedrecords.com, take your mouse, click on Fuck COVID-19. That's right, Fuck COVID-19. At the top of the page, pick an album from that drop-down menu, and you will be able to listen to it in its entirety for free. Also, to help anyone out, and this is also why we really are happy to partner with them, they are right now giving the opportunity to have anyone reach out to them via email, and we'll send you a free bag of coffee. That is right. All you have to do is send an email to rs@snubbedrecords.com, and you will get your own free bag of 8-ounce coffee. This coffee is their pumpkin roast. It is the Snubbed Records Pumpkin Patch. That is right, Pumpkin Patch for totally free. They believe that everyone should have access to a cup of coffee and access to great music, and that is why they're doing this right now. And so all these links will be below, but again, if you want to listen to some music right now, go over to snubbedrecords.com, click on Fuck COVID-19 at the top of the page, and start streaming your favorite album right now. And if you want your own coffee, send an email to rs@snubbedrecords.com. We will have those links in episode notes below. Thank you again, and let's jump into this episode.
I wish I had more to talk about. Like, I think that's, like, on the low end of priorities of, like, things that are important that have been affected by this quarantine. It's that I don't have much to talk about that, like, isn't already, like, well known.
Yeah.
I don't have any funny stories. I haven't done some, to the benefit of everyone else around me, I haven't done some weird, awkward shit that I don't know why I did in the moment, like, I haven't accidentally talked myself into a trench in the ground because I didn't think about what I said first or how I was going to say it. Like, nothing is happening. And I think that is the weirdest thing that's ever happened to me. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah, it does.
It's kind of like this weird, like, paradox of nothing to talk about. Because usually the stuff I talk about is really random, weird shit, and doesn't matter. And it's just weird shit that goes through my head. But now that nothing's happening, like, you think I would have more, like, imaginative stuff that I could just make up on the whim. But I got nothing, man. And I'm just sorry for, like, this whole, like, minute intro to an intro.
I mean, art imitates life, man. You can't be witty and funny if you're literally not doing anything. Like, you sit there and create an entire story in your head, and then you're like, that's really funny, me. Yeah, don't sweat me. And you like see two different yous like Gary Busey. Like, it's only funny to you.
Punk Rock Horror Podcast. I'm Matt.
I'm Cody.
And today we are here to remind you to hold tight, stay strong, keep your head up, and other good motivating words and stuff. I don't know. Really, like, I guess, like, realistically, on a more, like, non-sarcastic side, genuinely, like, keep your head up. Shit's rough right now. It's going to be rough for a hot minute, man. But it's going to get better. Just remember that this is the laziest apocalypse ever.
It really is. Like, we wanted zombies.
Oh, yeah.
You keep your people home so it can't spread.
Weird how that works.
I know. It's like listening to scientists and doctors work.
You know what, Cody? I'm getting tired of you saying that. I'm gonna go get my gun and go protest now.
Don't wear a mask. That defeats your whole fucking purpose. God,
I'm getting tired of the government holding me hostage.
what do you mean? Yeah, okay. I hope someone sneezes on you. Wow.
Oh man.
I can't handle the stupidity anymore.
Oh god. Yeah, like
I
it's
can't
got.
handle it.
Look, man. I think no further intro needed. Let's just jump into something we love and hate.
Yeah.
This is the segment of the show where we jump into something we love and hate that has happened in the past day, week, or month around us, and it's could be anything as big as political thought-turning, insightful opinions to small little loving things of a homemade cake we made recently and why we enjoy that. So, go starting off, buddy. Why don't you take it away?
It's just you know what? I don't even care anymore. It's like one of those things where it's like I got so mad the other day because I thought it was a joke. I swear to God, I thought it was a joke about the whole bleach thing.
Oh god, that's what I hate too.
I thought it was a joke.
Me
And then
too.
to find out it was real, and it was something like I just at that point I was just like, you know what? Just fucking fuck it, fucking let them.
Well, you know what the real big problem with it though, like the other side of that, like why that's a huge issue that he said that. Like to add on to what you're talking about, is that okay if I kind of add on?
Yeah.
Like what's also so like just mind-boggling is how like regardless if he was kidding or not, like he's supposed to be what represents America, and he makes this joke not even thinking that people have actually done this to self-harm. I mean, there was even a huge case that here in Colorado, that happened at a high school. I'm not going to go through all the details because I know that a lot of people in Colorado do listen.
My
So
English teacher, he's the
yeah,
one who's there.
yeah. And so I'm not going to go through all the details, but like that, it's very serious. Like it's not something to joke about. And for like, it's already risky when like a comedian who does dark humor tries to take that on. But like when the president of the United States does it, and he's like, again, regardless if he's joking or not, is just like it's so insane how insensitive he is. Like
Well,
people say that money doesn't change you, but like he's obviously the clear example because I don't know why you would think to say that in front of thousands upon millions of people. Like it's just I'm sorry, I totally took it away. I apologize, man. That was rude. Take it away from me.
no, you're good, man. Like I agree, and it's just like the dumbest thing too. Like the thing that pisses me off the most about it too is like there are people that are going to actually do it, that will listen to them and do it. Like, and that's what I mean by like I just I'm at the point where I'm just like, yeah, just fucking just let them, fuck it, like let them drink the bleach.
Well, and like
Because I'm
you
just
know
like,
what's
how, just why, man, why, and how can you still be someone that supports this guy? Like
that
that's
yeah
what I mean.
yeah
Like I understand. Okay, you know what? You want to be Republican, whatever. I don't do you boo boo. You want to be Democrat, do you boo boo. Like you want to take that hardcore stance, but I don't know how in good fucking conscience you could truly support this guy who's straight up like is like did had all the signs and had all the power to like help out this country before like all this became as big as it was and did nothing. And then also just like whether he had time or two or not, he had plenty of time to do other things to help counteract this. Like there was plenty of things that he could have done that he didn't, and had like plenty of time to like listen to things and he didn't. And like whether or not it's just like after all of this, and then for him to come out and say that, I don't know how in good conscience you can be a true human being and say you support this motherfucker anymore. Like
right
it's just,
like
I just
dude, to add on add on more what you're saying. Like I had someone on just like on my Facebook who's a supporter of him who was like sadly not surprised for them to like share this propaganda post basically saying like I'm not gonna say it word for word, but like it's basically saying like y'all are getting upset about a joke he made about disinfectant being put in your body, and yet you're fine with disinfectant being put in your body anyways because disinfectants in vaccines, and you're still getting mad at him. And I'm just like, how are you twisting this around to be about vaccines? Like, what the fuck are you talking about? You
Yeah.
psycho. Like it's just like it's mind-boggling, dude. Like, and and I think the cherry on top of this whole frustration Sunday, what's gonna really kind of tip it is that all these complaints, even what we're saying, is only going to be looked at as liberal, nonsense, millennial complaining, all that, and maybe that's reaching a little, but it's just
Well,
like the fact that there
it's
is
not.
already but the again though, like there's people that like are trying to justify it, like he was joking, don't take it a big deal. Like, joking aside, serious stuff is happening. Like, on one hand, you're making a joke about something serious that people do to cause self harm, while at the same time you're making it a joke about people who are currently dying from an actual virus. Like, and not just like a small pocket of number, which, by the way, it doesn't matter the size of the of people who are dying from it, but how big it is, like the fact that you're not even approaching it with the appropriate stance of lives
It's
are
just
being
how
lost in
about
general is insane. Like, it just I can't understand it. Like, I can't wrap my head around why you can justify it for
yeah.
justify
It's
someone. It's nuts, man. It's nuts.
for me. It's just do your fucking job. How about you take whatever fucking few brain cells you truly have in that fucking plastic dome you have, and actually use them to listen to the goddamn scientists that are there. That's their fucking job, and
Yeah.
just do that instead of trying to make a shitty ass joke or whatever the fuck you want to call it. How about you just fucking listen to the
Oh god,
smart
man. It's
people, the people whose job is literally to prevent this and help this out, and fucking listen to them, and then just do that. Just come on.
uh,
And like I don't know. I don't
No,
know.
I get it, man.
Anyway,
We all share the same frustration. But to liven things up, let's talk about something we love. Do you
yeah.
want to take it away, buddy, or do you want me to give you a second to breathe?
So funny enough, the thing that I'm loving is this game. It's a really, really underrated game that came out last year. And it's really, really fucking good. And it like has such good conspiracy and horror in it. It's called Control. And like I needed a break from the happy-go-luckiness of Animal Crossing, just because like I just need a small break from that.
Yeah.
And like I mean I'm still delving hard into my Animal Crossing, but I was like I need something a little darker and a little new. And and I heard so many good things about this game from What Culture, and I decided to pick it up. It was on sale because of all the sales that the games are doing online, and I picked it up, and it's good. It's really fucking good. Like from the get go, it's such a good like conspiracy game. Like you're
Mhm.
playing this chick Jessie, and she's comes to this place called the Federal Bureau of Control, the
Mhm.
FBC, and it's pretty much the government's branch of paranormal research. It's kind of like the Men in Black, and and so you just walk into this place, and like right from the get-go, like it's just delves straight into conspiracy theories, and like you have a secret agenda of why you're there, and then all of a sudden she becomes the director of the place and can have like and you start like developing telekinetic powers. And they did a really good job with the telekinesis in this game, where like you can literally rip the concrete off of the walls or the floor and start flinging it at dudes in mid game in combat and stuff.
Oh, dope.
Yeah, it's really good, and the story's really done really, really well with like the whole paranormal things. Like you can see the X-Files and Twin Peaks inspirations in it. Like it's good.
I feel like now is like the best time for like Aaron to actually play video games, because now I feel like they actually have more games that would have her interest.
Yeah, yeah, right. I know Audrey loves watching me play Animal Crossing. Like every time I pull out my Switch, she goes, "You play Animal Game?" And she likes when I the fishing in it. She goes because like it gives you, it goes, "Good job, you caught a fish." She goes, "Yay!" And so like it's cool. Like she's starting to get to that age, almost there too. Like not Erin's definitely a lot closer.
Oh, I bet I meant Paranormal Princess Aaron.
Oh yeah, that too. She actually, honestly, I feel like Erin would actually really enjoy Control. Like it's a good story with the whole like conspiracy stuff, and like also you play a badass female character too, and then just all the like government conspiracy and Twin Peak-esque stuff. Like it's right up her alley.
Rad. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm gonna have to check it out, man. It definitely got a lot of good buzz, so I mean, I'm a little more sold on it. That's for sure.
Yeah, no, it's definitely, and like the nice thing is I think it's only like a 20, maybe like it's 20+ hour campaign, so it's not that long. So it's like definitely a good little playthrough, and the story like it definitely keeps you hooked. And the nice thing is like the side missions in the game are kind of like while you play, you'll complete them. Like you have, of course, your challenges like kill certain enemies in this area because it's a very Metroidvania game. Like you can't
Okay,
get to certain areas in the beginning until you unlock a certain telekinetic power.
got
But
it.
and so it goes like kill so many enemies with this upgrade to your pistol. Like you have it, so you only get one gun in the game, but it modifies. So it's kind of like Judge Dredd in that sense. You know how he has like flame
Right, right.
shot and stuff. Instead, like you get you get a gun, and I'm not going to spoil. Like it's really key to the story of like how you get this gun, and it changes into a shotgun, machine gun, or submachine gun, or a pistol. And I'm guessing there's going to be like a sniper option. I haven't gotten that far yet, but like it has like these changes, and which is pretty cool. So like it's good, man.
Sounds good. Yeah, I mean, for me, man, it's kind of like now, like I guess what I love this week is what you've been loving too, as well as just is just these moments I'm having with my kid. So like tonight, it was like really adorable because what happened was so I did my kind of spoil it, like I did my movie review on the Blob. But so she watched a few scenes with it, and I let her watch a few scenes with it with me because like for me it was I this was like one of the movies that I watched when I was a kid over and over, like, and it never really like scarred me. Like it was one of those ones that definitely like filled my imagination. And so like I would even pretend like the cool pack in my lunches was like the Blob.
I
Like,
always did it with Gak.
oh, I should have done it with Gag. I never thought to do it with Gag. I just liked doing it with the ice pack because like when it finally like was melted, like it was like it moved around really like fluidly, kind of like the Blob did. I felt like. Either way, point being, is that so like she saw a few scenes and like like they kind of spooked her a little bit, but she was all right. But going to bed, like she went to bed, woke up, and I had to go talk to her because like she thought the Blob was real. So I had to like explain to her like why the Blob wasn't real, and then it went from her like being like kind of worried the Blob was being real and be like to me like her being happy that it maybe is real to her, like she thinks it is because like she's like, so was the Blob real? I'm like, no, it's a fictitious made up alien from outer space, and like I'm just making something up, for her to kind of like know it's not real, and so like it's from outer space, so on and so forth, and it's just coming to Earth to invade and take over. And she's like, and why does it eat people? I'm like, because it's hungry and needs to eat the people. But again, it's not real. And she's like, oh, so it's eating the people and it's gonna eat everything. And I'm like, yeah, for the most part, at least humans. And she's like, awesome. I was just like, all right, I guess you're not scared of the Blob anymore. So I was like, okay, you good to go to bed? She's like, yeah, I'm gonna go to bed. She's like, good night. And I'm like, all right, falling asleep on the thought of people getting eaten by a giant gelatinous form.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, so I mean, you got to hold on to as many of these little things as we can right now, right?
Oh yeah, no, yeah, for sure.
But
Like,
yeah,
yeah, like I said, like you were saying, like I've been really enjoying having these smaller moments with Audrey. It's just been really nice seeing as how I have the time now because I went from literally no time in the world to almost all the time in the world now. So like now having these small moments with her has just been like really awesome. Like so she for the time being she's basically having to like share the bed with me and Dev.
Yeah.
And it's just really funny because I know Dev gets kind of jealous because Audrey has to sleep next to me. Like she has to be like touching me in her sleep no matter what. So like even if like Dev is like cuddling her and like rolls over to where like I'm like Dev's little spoon to me and Audrey's little spoon to her, by the end of the night Audrey will still somehow manage to like crawl over Dev and push herself in between us so she could be cuddling me. Like
Yeah. Get good, Dev. I don't know.
yeah. No, it's just like it's just been nice. So,
Yeah, no, for sure, man.
finding these nice things in this crazy chaotic time.
All right, there's gonna be a time where like they're gonna be older and then we're gonna wonder they're gonna want to hang out with us more, and we're just gonna be like, hell no, and they're gonna be like, why? And I'm like, because I saw your face so much in the year of 2020.
Yeah, you're not allowed to leave. Not allowed to hang out. You have to hang out with me now.
Like I just like now I'm expecting it all the time. Like give me some time to breathe. God, you act like you're my kid or something.
Jesus.
Oh man! All right. Well, that's something we love and hate. Feel free to let us know if you agree with any of our opinions or thoughts, or have any of your own opinions. Feel free to shout us out on Twitter at officialprhp to do that. But to move forward, we're going to jump into some movie reviews. So here, new to the show, to explain to you how we do this. So when we pick a movie, we pick a horror movie. Each of us do to go over and make the case for. So we decide, whether or not this movie has been overlooked or not. And once we find that movie, we go and view it, give the pros, give the cons, and tell you what to expect of the whole movie, and tell you why you should watch it. That being said, let's jump into it. Cody, what did you review?
Yeah, so I know I mean, I kind of spoiled it on Monday's episode, but so I'm doing the Nightmare on Elm Street 2010 remake.
2010.
Okay, I know this is an extremely controversial pick because honestly, I really enjoyed it, and I'm pretty certain I figured out why this one's so hated on in the horror community, and why, and why, just besides the fact that, like, yes, I know Robert Englund was young, still like in his prime to do Freddy again, but like with James Earl Haley, like I think it was he was like a good pick to do a stand-in for him. But anyways, so before I get into all that stuff, yes, I'm doing Nightmare on Elm Street. Synopsis is: the specter of a disfigured man haunts the children of the parents who murdered him, stalking and killing them in their dreams. All right, IMDb. It was directed by Samuel Bayer. It was written by Wesley Strick and Eric Hasier. It stars Jackie Earl Haley, Rooney Mara, and Kyle Gallner. And so yeah, so
Can I just say though that I appreciate your professionalism, because you still explained the plot of Nightmare on Elm Street on a horror podcast to a bunch of people that probably have already seen it. At least the 80s, I mean. So I appreciate that about you, buddy. And I was like, because I was thinking, I was like, is he actually gonna do the whole synopsis, like,
yes.
or is he gonna leave it out? Like, so bravo.
You know what? I have to stick to my journalistic integrity, okay? I have to have some kind of journalistic integrity at some point.
No,
Anyways.
I mean, I guess to be fair, Erin did say that like recently, like only this past October was the first time she saw the first Ghostbusters movie. So I guess it is plausible that we have listeners that have never seen Nightmare on Elm Street and don't know what to expect.
Exactly.
So either way, though, I'm sorry for interrupting.
It's good. So, starting off with the movie, I'm going to go through the whole movie, and then I'll give my opinion of why I believe I figured out the problem with this movie and why I can understand the hatred for it, but I still think it's a pretty solid movie. So, anyways, going on to what's going on in here. So I enjoyed the beginning. I do think it was a little long, the intro credit stuff. But at least there was stuff to look at. Like it had, cryptic messages with like kid toys, and like the blocks would say something scary or like help me, and like, there's kids like jump roping and stuff. So you know what you're in for, the whole like creepy aesthetic of Freddy Krueger and stuff, and like his relation to kids. Like because in the original he was a kid killer. And so it did go on a little long, so I will say that that's a small con, but at least I had something to look at, that wasn't just scenery, top of roofs. Like at least there's creepiness, and so I like and then the opening is pretty good. Like so, it opens up in a diner, and one thing that I will say that I loved throughout this entire movie of what it does really really well is the transition between dream sequences and reality. Is it blends really really well to where you can't tell if it's a dream or not through the movie. So there are times where like, oh, this is reality, but then it's not, or like, oh, it's a dream but it's actually real. So like it's cool. I thought they did a really good job in this movie, because like in the first and in the beginning it shows Dean, and it shows him sitting in this diner and he's asking for a cup of coffee, but then he's like, the waitress is ignoring him and she's just like giving him hints like follow me, and so he's like, okay. So she, that's when you can tell like it's a nightmare, because like not only is it kind of creepy looking, but like he's like, you can tell something's off, and then you can really tell it's a nightmare when he gets into the kitchen and there's like a fire going and all the food's rancid and creepy looking, and then you see Freddy like creeping up behind him. And one thing I liked what James Earl Haley did to like make Freddy his own is when he's walking around with he's like sharpening his blades, like he twiddles his fingers like he's sharpening his blades on themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought that was kind of a nice touch to kind of like add Freddy to his own, like making it his own character. And so like you see that, and then like I will say I don't like that it shows Freddy's face this early on in the movie. Like I kind of wish they held off on it. And I know the makeup on Freddy was like one of the biggest things that people hate on, but I don't think it was terrible. Like I do agree that there was like probably a little, like there wasn't as much practical effects to him. You can tell when there's CG touch-ups on his face. And like I feel like the CG was this movie did rely a little too much on CGI, but like there are also like it still holds up in most of this movie. Like there's a part in the movie where he's like the wall scene. I know that's a really super iconic scene from the old movies where he's in the wall and he like stretches out the wall.
Mm-hmm.
They did it in all CG in this movie, and like it was a little off-putting. Like that part didn't hold up as well, but the rest of it holds up pretty well. But so going back to the beginning, I liked the death in the very beginning too. It's really really visceral. So I like the deaths in this movie. They're all really visceral and just like bloody, and it's really cool because like it shows like Freddy isn't a joke. He's creepy, he's scary, he's visceral, he's like this serial killer. And like the way person dies in the beginning is like he sticks the knife in his Freddy's like holding him in his dream, and the kid's holding the knife like in the diner, and he's like standing up in reality just like how he's being held in the dream, and he like stabs the knife in his throat and just like cuts all the way across all the way through, and like and it shows it, and I was like, fuck yeah. Like that's fucking awesome. And so what I also like about it is because it shows how in reality it almost looks like a suicide,
Yeah.
So like it's almost shows that like Freddy's smart. Like he thinks about like how the deaths in reality are gonna look compared to the how he kills them like in the dreams. So it's like he wants it to make it look like either it was a suicide or someone else did kill them, instead of like something's a little off, you know. So
Yeah,
I
and you
thought
know
that was
what? Like, to kind of add to it, like, I know, like, the argument against that would be like, well, what would be the motive behind him doing that? You know, like, why does it matter? He's an ethereal being. You know, they can't really hurt him. You know, kind of thing. But I would argue that it's more so, like a sign of his psyche, you know, because of the demented, you know, killer he is. Like the fact that he's willing to make it just look like somebody took their own life when really it was him killing him is just like his way of torturing those that did him wrong, you
Yeah,
know?
it's kind of like a big middle finger to them, like, yeah, I'm back, but I'm not gonna let everyone else know.
Yeah,
Yeah,
like I'm gonna first torment your kids first and make you doubt them completely, you
yeah,
know?
yeah. So that's what I like about it is like it make all his kills are like pretty much centered around something like that. And so and they're all really visceral. And I will also get onto the his kills is another like thing that I saw a bunch of people gripe on, but I'll touch on that later. Anyways, back to what like what's going on here is so like and one thing that I really like so they give they show the big name actress in Katie Cassidy who plays Chris Fowles. And so they kind of play her up like she's gonna be the final girl. And what I really like about this movie that they did really well is the whole that not a whole lot of movies do. I mean they kind of do it's a little more done now, but like it was kind of new back then was where they build up like, oh, this is going to be the final girl, but not really. And unless you're a hardcore Nightmare on Elm Street fan and know that Nancy is the true final girl of the Nightmare on Elm Street franchise, um, you're going to believe this girl Chris is going to be the final girl. And so like what I like is they build that up and so they kind of make you think like, oh shit, because especially because it's the bigger named actress in Katie Cassidy, you know.
Yeah.
And so what I like is like they're building her up because you start following Chris and it shows her at the funeral of her friend who just died. And she's crying and then so of course like because she was crying so much, she probably faded off she kind of dozes off at this funeral and she sees this little girl standing like next to the grave. And then she sees the little girl. All of a sudden, she has a big oak slash like on her front from Freddy's glove. The little
Yeah.
girl does, and she's like, "Oh shit!" And like she wakes up at the funeral. And so again, like what I like is that it blended in this dream with reality, where you couldn't tell it was a dream until like there's a hint that Freddy's there. And they do this like throughout the whole movie, which I really like, where you can't tell if it's a dream or a nightmare until you just see a hint that Freddy's there, and then they dive into the whole nightmare sequences. And I thought they did them really well. So like for instance, there's that one at the funeral, and then the next one is when Chris is in class, and so she's like, they're talking about. Sorry, I thought.
No, you're cool.
So Chris is like starting to remember things about like Freddy. She's starting to kind of remember her past, and she's like, "Who's this Freddy guy?" And so at the funeral, sorry, I'm going to backtrack a little bit. At the funeral, she sees a picture of Dean when he was like 5 years old, and then she sees a picture of her, and she's in the same picture, and she's 5 years old. She's like starting to remember. She's like, I don't remember when I was five. I thought I had just met all these people, like in high school, and it's showing like pictures of all like she sees pictures of all the like the main characters when they were all kids and they all and they had thought they all knew each other just from high school, but in reality, they all knew each other when they were little kids. So it's like, oh, they planted like there's something going on here, like in their past. And so that they do a really good job of blending the nightmare in the next scene where she's in class and like she's just flipping through her textbook. They're like, turn to page 72 or whatever, and she flips, and then you see Freddy's glove, like a drawing of Freddy's glove in the book, and that's when you know it's a nightmare sequence. Like this isn't reality, and I thought they did really, really good. Um,
Yeah, you know,
it's
man. Oh, sorry. I was just like gonna add on to like that too a little bit.
yeah,
Like I enjoy that too because like, you know, back in the original movies, they started getting more a little creative of like when like Freddy gives like a hint that they're in a nightmare.
Yeah,
Like
because originally, like you would know in the originals, you knew when they were in the nightmare, like they were going to bed. It would show them going to bed.
yeah, but
So
they like always included like within that person's nightmare like some sort of like cheeky little hint that like they're in that nightmare,
yeah,
But they always get to a point in the movie where they do fall asleep at some point, but even to you it doesn't look like they fall asleep, like you lost track of it. And so when they kind of like throw in those cute little hints of the cute morbid little hints of just like, guess what, like I always thought that was like the cool part about it, because it was just kind of like a Finding Waldo type of little thing. You know what I mean?
yeah. Oh yeah, yeah. No, that's what I mean. I thought they did a great job in this one. Like, of course, there are the moments where like you definitely know they're in the nightmare, but like they do a cool like other twist with it, where like, oh shit, they were in a nightmare longer than you thought they were. So like, um, for instance, like in the classroom setting that I just talked about. And so one thing they do, so this is where like some of the controversy comes in. So what the originals did really well with like all the main characters, like all the kids, the teenagers, is
Mm-hmm.
like they always make them like, you kind of root for them, except in the sequels, like you always like they made them, every single one, including the final girl, a little prickish, where you're like, I kind of want it, what, can't wait for Freddy or Jason to kill you, in all those slashers,
Mm-hmm.
like you want them to die to an extent. So I like they do that really well in this movie too. Like each kid like has something about him where you're like, you know what? If you like Jesse is a complete prick in this movie, and you're like, I can't wait for Freddy to kill you. And like same with Chris, like she's like the super preppy like rich girl. You're kind of like, you know what? I could kind of like she's that like stereotypical one that you're also like kind of waiting for, even though she's the big name. And then same with like all the characters, even Nancy, you're kind of like you root for her, because like I rooted for her the entire time, because what I liked the change with Nancy in this one is they made her like kind of like gothy artsy, because she's like she does art, she draws a lot in this movie and stuff, and I like it. It's always like dark and stuff, and they make her kind of punkish, and so I
Yeah.
like that change in her in this one, instead of being, because like Chris's character in this movie was Nancy's character in the original, like the suburban girl, kind of preppish. And I like the change in Nancy in this one, because it also makes her. I feel like she's smarter longer in this one. Because like in the original, Nancy is the first one to start picking up on everything, but she doesn't get really smart until like the third act. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But in this one, they do a good job of having her like be a little bit smarter earlier. So like, for instance, oh, I got a little ahead of myself. Sorry.
No, you're cool. You're cool.
But yeah, so like the next death scene I thought was really fucking great. It's like really visceral and really bloody. And it's like the surprise death scene in this movie, which I liked. It did it really early with the big name actress. And so and so what's cool about it too is like they foreshadow her death, like with foreshadow her death earlier in the movie, and then she dies the same way, like her death's foreshadowed, but it was like you didn't know it was foreshadowing it. So I thought that was really cool, and the whole scene is just really awesome and shot really well. And so one thing I like what they do with this movie is the hints of how all the main characters are connected to Freddy. So like I like the hints, but I don't like the outcome of how they're connected, and I agree with the whole like why a lot of fans really hated this movie, and it's for how they're connected to Freddy, and I'll agree. I don't like that, and they could have definitely kept with more of the original reason of why, like, Freddy's evil, because he's just a serial killer. And so, but I'll get there when I get there. And but one thing I thought liked about this movie, that sadly the sequels of Nightmare on Elm Street, that I know a lot of people love about them, but what they did do to Freddy is they kind of took the scary out of him, because he would always just make the one liners and the quips outside of New Nightmare, um, where they made him more scary, like the first one again. But in this one, they make Freddy scary. Like he's terrifying. You're afraid for these kids when like he's around, because like James Earl Haley, he does such a good, or Jackie Earl Haley, sorry. Jackie Earl Haley does such a good job as Freddy. And yes, I understand it's not Robert Englund, but I feel like of anyone that could be Freddy, just like what Corey said, like Jackie Earl Haley is a good person to pick to do it. And I thought that was perfect casting. And I think he definitely did such a good job. And I do wish they did a little better on his makeup. Like I will agree his makeup was a little off and again a little too CG'd and I wish they went more practical with it. But I think him in general was just fantastic as Freddy. Cause like he even has like some little quips and one-liners that are pretty funny. Like when Chris falls asleep in class, he like is the teacher and he turns around and he's like, you shouldn't be falling asleep in class. Like he makes a comment about it. But then he also has some really scary like lines where he like there's the part where Jesse's freaking the fuck out around Freddy and he just looks at him and goes, "Why are you screaming? I haven't even cut you yet." Like he makes him terrifying again.
Yeah, that's also where I kind of understand a lot of the criticism too, because like I get why they hate that performance because Robert Englund's performance is of him being more quippy. Like he did make it a landmark performance of what Freddy stood out because, because Freddy stood out amongst the killers at the time because Jason and Michael were the silent killers and he was the only one that really said anything. I mean, even Leatherface just mostly screamed for the most part.
Yeah, and then you had Chucky, but he was a doll.
Yeah, and that was like the only other one. And so until like Scream came along, like that's what made Freddy stood out because he was a character, and I think that
but
is like
Scream could get away with having different killers because it was always a different killer.
Right, like it is easy to like transfer that mask from one person to the other.
Yeah.
It's easy to copy. I would say that is my only like con against the movie is just like the makeup because I feel like they could have gone a better route for Freddy's face. I get it, like I get it. They were trying to be more realistic with the burns of like what a burn victim would look like, and I get that aspect of it, like, and that makes sense. But like it's more so the idea of Freddy being terrifying is just like seeing his flesh being a mutated looking zombie, for the most part. And I think that's what's mostly terrifying about the original look. Other than that, though, man, like I do agree with you. Like he's a great role to take on for Nightmare on Elm Street, and I feel like if they took a little more time with it and gave it a little more love and made at least one more movie, that he could have actually stood on his own. And I think it's really great that you. And I think you're making some really great points. I mean, I think this is like your Dark Souls version of a movie review because like even Robert Englund does not like the remake, and he's made that known. And so like I think it's good that you took it on and that you're making the case for it because I'm like 100 episodes in, it's about time we start changing up our game.
Yeah, I know.
Really so start taking out some harder ones.
So before I go on, I just want to like a couple more like cases for Freddy, like how they made him scary. Like there's this one point in the movie where he like rips out a person's heart and then he tells them like, the brain functions for 7 minutes after the heart stops. So like he's like, we're gonna have some fun for the next 6 minutes. Like he tells them that so he can torture him even longer. Like it's super brutal. Like they make him super brutal and visceral in this movie. Yeah. And so that's all I'm going to talk about with the movie, just because I don't want to spoil any more. Because I do believe like you should go and see it. And so, just the two big controversies. How I figured out what's wrong with this movie is because they had so much potential to really make it their own, and I see the potential in it and making it like really scary and stuff like that, and like what they could have done with it. But like when it comes to recasting of voiced characters, so like the Friday the 13th remake and the Halloween remake, did a lot better than this one because like they were silent characters, like you said. So it's easier to recast them. And so, like, having Jackie Earl Haley, while I think he did fantastic, it's hard to replace Robert Englund. And then it's the other thing, the biggest thing, is the change of instead of having Freddy being just a child killer, serial killer, like he did in the originals, and changing him to being a child molester was the biggest harm to this movie because it made it too real. It made it too gross because like I said in the original movies, you secretly rooted for the serial killers. You secretly rooted for Jason and Freddy to kill these god awful people of these teens because like you kind of hated the teens in those movies outside of like Nancy and the usually the final person.
Yeah.
And so they do a good job of kind of making you hate these teens, but instead of just having them be a killer and having these kids actually being victims of sexual assault by Freddy, it makes you feel bad for like for instance, I felt bad for wanting Jesse to die because of what he went through as a kid. And that's the biggest reason, and I feel like the biggest thing of why this movie is so hated on is because they should have just kept Freddy as a killer instead of a pervert. And like that's the biggest issue. And so like I feel like if they kept him as a killer, this movie would be so much better. Like and that's the horse and like the elephant in the room about this movie, and I think it would have been more accepted like with Child's Play, while it's still like a little garnered on since they had a different voice actor even though it was Mark Hamill. It's the fact that he wasn't a pervert and they made Freddy into a pervert in this movie. And I feel like if they took that part out and just kept him instead as just a murderer, it would have been so much better. So outside of that part, it's really, really good. And they did really well with the deaths. Like the vlogger kid's death is really good. And like they do a good job of explaining why the other kids that went to their fifth grade school weren't around and they were killed off and stuff. Like they did a good job of all of that. So like I definitely say give this movie a watch. And like I especially if you're like I just feel like this is a good movie just to give another watch and like give it another chance and like because they do such good and just see the potential in this movie and I really enjoy it.
There you go.
Yeah.
There you have it. Yeah, man, I always thought that I always remember that movie wrong because I always thought it was that he wasn't a child molester and they thought he was and killed him because they thought he was.
They do so they make it ambiguous of whether he was or not, but then in the third act they reveal that he is, and that's how it kind of ruins it because like they do paint it like he's not, that he was actually he was just framed and it was just 5-year-olds being shitty 5-year-olds, and then they straight up go no, he diddled the kids. And so like and it was like all right, that's where it kind of ruins it instead of just having him being a serial killer.
Well, there you go.
I
All
do
right,
get
then.
big gripe. I do see it, but like I still believe it's a pretty decent remake, like especially of a classic franchise. It could have been a lot worse, like all the Texas Chainsaw Massacre remakes and the Black Christmas remake, the most modern one.
I got you. Why don't you give us some trivia about it?
Oh yeah. So since sorry, Patches again interrupted. And
It's cool. And just so if you want to check it out, Nightmare on Elm Street right now, 2010, make sure you can check it out on with a Netflix subscription or on iTunes for $3.99 or on Vudu, YouTube, and Google Play for $2.99.
Yeah. All right, so some fun trivia. Johnny Depp accompanied his friend Jackie Earl Haley to auditions for A Nightmare on Elm Street in 1984. Instead of Haley being chosen for a role, it was Depp who was spotted by director Wes Craven, who asked him if he would like to read for a part. Depp got a part in that film, and Haley didn't, but Haley would go on to play Freddy in the remake 26 years later. So he was actually auditioning for Johnny Depp's role.
Go figure. That's crazy,
Yeah.
man.
For his big scene in the opening sequence, Kellen Lutz chose not to sleep for a few days to get himself into character, and it shows. Like the acting is pretty decent. Like I thought was pretty good in this movie. Freddy's sweater was knitted by Judy Graham, the same woman who knitted Freddy's sweater in the original Nightmare on Elm Street. And then last one for me was Freddy gloves were the most protected props on set. Previous films had issues with the gloves being stolen. Most notorious was a glove that was stolen from one of the films and appeared in Evil Dead 2, hanging in the shed. So that's a stolen glove in Evil Dead.
Yeah, because I feel like we read that as a trivia fact that like someone took a glove home.
Yeah.
From one of the movies. I feel like or am I just like am I getting that mistaken for something else?
So you know what's really funny? So one last trivia fact. Even though Robert Englund doesn't like the movie, he actually supported Jackie Earle Haley playing Freddy after watching his performance as Rorschach.
Yeah, no, I know. I know that one. That one I was actually really happy about because Robert Englund is a good dude. Like he's actually one of those celebrities that like is great to like meet in person. Just like all of like the fan like kind of momentums about him and whatnot. Like I read like Robert Englund's a good dude. I love that
guy. Sorry, I just found one last funny one. When Jackie Earle Haley was asked what put him in the right mindset to play Freddy Krueger, he said, "Sitting in the makeup chair for 3 hours. After that, you feel like you could kill someone."
Oh man, I love it. All right, well,
yep.
All right, review, sir. Buddy.
Your turn.
All right, well, mine is probably less divisive, but probably not as well talked about as it should, though, guaranteed. So mine is not Dawn of the Dead. I'm sure a lot of people were expecting that I was gonna finally take this moment and do a full review of Dawn of the Dead, the remake, and tell you why you need to watch it. But again, we talk about it enough. Just watch it already. I don't know how else to sell you on that thing. Just like watch the movie. Go watch it there.
Mm-hmm.
Review. If you haven't watched it yet, you're missing out. Anyways, my movie review though mine though is of a 1980s movie. It's a classic remake in that I did The Blob, which came out in 1988. So The Blob. It's directed by Chuck Russell, written by Theodore Simonson and Kay Lineker. It stars Shawnee Smith, Kevin Dillon, and Donovan Light Jr. And the synopsis is: a deadly entity from space crashes near a small town and starts to consume anyone in its path. Panic ensues. A shady government scientists try to contain the horrific creature. So, yeah, I mean, it's actually a decent synopsis of the film, or not synopsis, a summary. So, thank you, IMDb, for getting some of them right, I guess.
Hooray! They get one every now and then.
Every now and then. We'll give it to them. I mean, technically, they were right about Nightmare on Elm Street, so.
Yeah.
I guess we'll give that one to them. It kind of gets. It has an asterisk next to it, though. Anyway, so The Blob. It's such a great 80s movie in much the same way that so many others make you feel nostalgic without having to ever been born in that time or lived in that time. And that's like the overall tone of the film. So kind of just jumping into it, the first comment I'm just going to throw out really fast is that it does have a slow opening. It's the whole panoramic, scenery shots. It's what you expect from an 80s film, really. I mean, I wasn't a fan of that, but that's always going to be me. I'm never a fan of those type of intros. So that aside, it's this great telling of B horror movie inside this 80s nostalgia shell. So to go on a little bit more into it, the movie starts out with how the synopsis says. We see, space, and then this meteor coming in from space, crashing down into the planet, and then we're introduced to the small town and the characters to it, and that's you're gonna get your cliche characters here in a sense, where you're gonna have the jock who wants to ask out the cheerleader to go out on a date Friday night, and then you have the local town bad boy who's always the punk, the one that everyone goes to blame, and he doesn't have parents, or no one volunteered for the job type of attitude. And so like that's so you're getting very cliche like stereotypes that you've seen in a horror movie before, but that's kind of where I make it a pro though, because so this movie does actually take kind of a minute to get to the whole blob entering the narrative and starting to kill people. So why I make that a pro though is that it actually gives you time with these characters to kind of justify caring about them a bit more. Like it shows that the jock isn't like an actual like stereotypical jock. Like they wrote like his character appears to be a cliche because he's like, yeah, I'm gonna go ask her out on this date, and hopefully it goes well. And his friend Fred is the pervert who's like, yeah, you're totally gonna bang her, right, bro? So like, at first you're just like, oh, okay. So I mean, I already know what to expect, but gain more to see, the friend that isn't Fred the pervert he's actually, a nice guy. Like he generally has interest in the girl who's played by Shawnee Smith, by the way, who is a legend herself. Shawnee Smith is mostly known for her role in the Saw franchise, being the heir to Jigsaw's whole enterprise. And so, she plays the love interest of this movie. And so I was like, it really surreal seeing her, because another actor who's also in this movie that I always forget that's in here is Jeffrey DeMunn, who is in The Green Mile, plays Dale in The Walking Dead. It was in The Shawshank Redemption too. So like he's in this movie as well. There's actually a lot of recognizable faces in this film throughout. Even Bill Moseley's in this film as a soldier. So I'll talk about where he kind of like shows up, because it was really just shocking to see Bill Moseley, because he is mostly known for The Devil's Rejects, being the brother in that film, and for being in most of Rob Zombie's flicks for the most part. That being said, sorry, I got a little sidetracked with the actors. Talking about that, they do a really great job at playing the roles and doing what they need to get the narrative going. The Shawnee Smith does eventually end up standing out more throughout the entire film. Her character develops, and so and that's just kind of one thing I kind of want to note is that everybody kind of gets a turn on their head for what you would expect of their stereotypes. So like I said, the jock, he turns out to be a sweet guy and actually only has the best interest in heart. And so, we see the whole day play out where like he's getting ready to go pick her up for the day. The bad boy's doing bad boy stuff, as you would expect, getting chased down by the cops, thinking that he murdered someone, when actually it was the Blob. And so that's where the Blob starts making its entrance into the narrative of the film, is that, as everybody's kind of getting their going on with their lives and the day-to-day routines, the Blob attaches itself to this local homeless man, and gets taken in, and they think that that the bad boy, he's the one that did it. The outlaw, the punk, he's the one that did it. Which, by the way, I'm just gonna finally say his name because me and Tyler are saying bad boy over and over. Brian, played by Kevin Dillon. The bad boy. Ooh.
Bag.
Oh, boy. That motorcycle isn't the only thing coming right now.
Me.
I wish I was the comb in your hair.
Okay.
So Brian, Brian, played by Kevin Dillon, is suspected for like harming the homeless man. Eventually, they're like, "Oh no, he didn't do shit." And then when the movie really picks up is where sorry, I lost track for like half a second there. Where Paul, the guy who's taking Shawnee Smith, who plays Meg, out for the date, they end up, kind of getting pulled aside because as they're driving along, they hit the homeless man, and because he runs out in the middle of the road, and they think that Brian is chasing him, and so that's why he ends up in police custody to begin with. And then, as they're all waiting at, the hospital, for, someone to come help the homeless man, this dude, Paul, he goes off on his own to like get help from a doctor, and he ends up like going to like take a phone call, I think it is, or something, and after he closes the door, the Blob finally attacks him. And then this is where I'm going to give another pro. So one thing that's great about this movie is its practical effects throughout the entire film. Like, if there is no CG. Everything is just like very old time edited, cut together of effects. And so like the thing that makes a Blob scary is, how do you put a fear factor to something that doesn't have a face, shape, much less a form? How do you make something terrifying that is just the gelatinous pink goop? Well, you make it acidic. You make it burn to the touch. So whenever he eats somebody, because he's transparent and you can see him, you can actually see the person digesting in real time as he's eating them. So yeah, like as as the blob's pulling back, you see Paul trying to like pull through and break through the goop, and you just see like his skin peeling off and like bone poking out. And it's like a really horrific scene, but it also is extremely impressive for how they pull it off, just because it is such an intricate effect to pull off, and it's so cool looking too. I mean, it looks very realistic. I mean, if you stop to forget that it's a movie and not real, like it's really well done, and I just love it for that. Like, the kills in this movie is what really makes it, and because you're continually surprised by how well the effects came together to make every single kill amazing. And it's and it's such an unweird and unusual monster that the effects really help with the surreal feeling of a massive pink goo destroying a whole town. You know, because because they really do a lot of things like by the books. Like, they do the separate shot of this small miniature truck being taken over by a goop. Like that's like the shot that they show so it can actually interact with the character. With the actor. And so like it's really cool. And what I also like about it is that there is some good humor thrown in also, which helps balance out a lot of the B movie chaos on display. So, like, for example, like, the movie's kind of ahead of its time as well with some of its humor, because it's a little meta. Because there's one scene I really enjoyed where, like, we're following the two boys. It's the little brother of Johnny Smith's character, Meg, him and his friend. They go and see this movie that's supposed to be a parody of Friday the 13th. Because it's a guy wearing a hockey mask, right? And so it shows them in the theater. And by the way, like, this is where shit starts to get really good. And I'm gonna have to come back to it in a minute because there's a few more pros I want to throw out really quick. But what I want to say is that what happens is, as they're watching this movie, there's a scene where the characters in the parody Friday the 13th movie is just like, we gotta get out of here. And then all of a sudden, like, it shows the killer wearing like the cheaply made hockey mask parodying Jason. And it's just like, wait a minute, it's not hockey season. And it's just like, and it happens really quick, but like, it's such a funny joke that I'm just like, I really appreciate that. Like, it's totally poking fun. Like, it's like, yeah, we'll take, on Friday the 13th, you think you can be all terrifying with your one guy going around with spears and machetes killing people? Yeah, well, how about this? We have a blob. Kind of like I mean, that's how I take it. But it's like the humor in the movie, like, throughout, like, it's thrown in sparingly, but it's pretty funny and I enjoy it because a lot of it is cheeky and like you'll see what I mean when you watch it. It's just really good. And real quick, I do want to touch on the beginning really fast because I know I talked about like a lot of it was just about them going on with their day, but I want to kind of come back to it and say that without that beginning and the interactions between all the characters that we get to see, it would more so, all the characters that you'd be following more so end up like, when are they going to be part of the kill count and not be their own characters? So I do enjoy that part of the movie, the fact that they flesh out the bad boy, not always just being a like cliche bad boy. Like, he does have some depth to him. Same with Meg, and same with the jock. Like, I do enjoy that. And oh, by the way, did I mention that this whole movie is a solid 5 out of 5 buckets of gore? Like, like, I mean, coming back to the homeless man, they're at the hospital, they open up like his blanket and see like his entire lower half has been dissolved by the acid already, or not the acid, the blob. Sorry, I say acid because it burns like acid. So, but yeah, like it just like already burns through him. It's just like this gooey mess, and so like it's like bloody and like it's rad. So it's a solid 5 out of 5. So it's I enjoyed it. It's over the top with that. And so also what I also want to say is that this probably has one of the most unique and frankly coolest lores behind a monster ever in a horror movie. Is it unique? No, but it is unique. Sorry, what I want to say is it like completely unique. No, but is it unique enough to where you don't see it a lot? Yes. This is a little bit spoilerish, so it's not the biggest spoiler in the world, but I'm still going to go over it anyways. If you don't want it to be spoiler for you, make sure to skip ahead about like just 1 minute. So I'm going to go ahead and talk about the spoiler in 3, 2, 1. This is now the spoiler. So we basically find out that the Blob, the way that this is set up is that the lore of him is the narrative that we're given throughout the film, which is that we find out that the Blob isn't an alien, but was instead an actual government experiment. And so what they're trying to do is basically repeat the damaging effect of a meteor, like because the scientists in this movie are like, hey, you ever wonder what actually happened after a meteor struck? Like, do you actually think the meteor took it out, or there was something else that the meteor brought that killed off the dinosaurs, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so, like, they were so basically, what they're trying to do is make this blob to be the next plague to cause another evolution, or to like actually just be a weapon that they can drop in a country to like wipe out an enemy to the U.S. Like, and it's very heavily hinted at that. Like, you'll miss it if you're not paying attention, but it's very heavily hinted that that's what they're doing with it. So this is the end of the spoiler. Going on a little bit more though, getting more towards the end. So as this blob is just wreaking havoc and killing people left and right, um, we're coming back to the theater scene. I will say I am glad Meg's little brother got killed in this movie. Kind of happy it happened. Because there's this one scene where like they're in the theater and like he's just like the rudest like kid ever. Like he has his headphones on, he has his feet up, like hitting someone's head on the seat. And like throughout this entire movie, like this is the one thing that I hate the most is just this goddamn kid and his like lack of respect for movie theaters. Like I know like people are dying and being dissolved by the bone, but still, like you can't just like go to a movie theater and not take your headphones off. I'm glad you get dissolved by a. So yeah,
Yeah.
I know that's really weird to be upset about, but I'm just fuck that kid. They find out that they eventually the government steps in with the scientists to like finally capture this thing and figure out what's going on, and they figure out that it's like taking refuge in the sewers. So I guess it like probably took up like owning rent space with Pennywise or something like that. Probably on the corner of like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. So I'm just trying to think of like all the other things that live in sewers in fictional worlds. So
Yeah.
anyway, sorry. But they figure out he's in the sewers, and so they gotta like trap him and like exterminate the blob that way. And I guess like that's pretty bold of me saying him, but either way, and so we find eventually Meg gets her little brother safe away from the blob after it attacks the movie theater, and they're stuck in the sewer, and then Brian comes and helps save Meg from the blob as they're all trying to escape. They run into a soldier, and soldier is played by Bill Moseley, who he's in it, he's in the scene for a pretty long time too. He's actually the soldier that has the cracked helmet that's in the sewer. He's the only survivor. It's actually it's really awesome kind of seeing him now in that movie. In this movie and all the movies he's been in because he's been in the Devil Rejects. And so this is where we're getting closer to the end of the film too. And at this point, they all try the lead scientist who's in charge of the group to like extract and kill the blob is trapping our heroes and poor Bill Moseley down in the sewer. And as they're trapping them down, they trap them under this manhole cover by putting a truck on top of the manhole, and so they can't lift it up. And so Bill Moseley has a rocket launcher, right, or a bazooka. That I guess it's a bazooka, yeah. I guess I have to be accurate because I kind of have to talk about this next scene. So they give him this. So he takes the bazooka to like blow up this manhole cover so they can actually escape from the blob out of the sewer. And so like Brian takes the rocket launcher, shoots the manhole cover, and like I don't know how far the manhole cover's up, but it doesn't look like it's that far up. But it completely destroys the truck and also destroys the manhole cover so they can get out. But I feel like, and I'm not like an expert, like an explosive expert in any sort of way, but I feel like when the bazooka hit the manhole cover, there should have been like the force alone should have like knocked Brian on his ass. But then again, I don't know like how far apart it was or anything like that. It was just kind of like one of those scenes where it had to work so the movie could have an ending. So it's kind of in one sense so ridiculous that you enjoy it, but also you're kind of like have to question over and over like how likely that would actually work. Again, keeping in mind that this whole movie is about a fictitious blob killing an entire town.
Yeah.
So, but that being said, though, like that sewer scene still holds up. Like it is probably one of the most intense scenes I've seen in a horror movie, and it still kind of holds up. Because even at the part where like Shawnee Smith's character Meg is running with her brother and his friend through the sewer while being chased by this blob that's just like you can't see it, but you know it's underwater, but it's making like waves and splashes. Like it's a very intense scene. Like even for being like a late '80s film, like it still holds up. And so I enjoyed it for that too. Like it was great. Also, there's one other scene that I also got to talk about that it's going to come off really dumb, but it's kind of smart. So it's still a little dumb, but bear with me. So to finally defeat the blob, what they finally do is that they realize that the blob's weakness is low temperatures. It's the cold. So with that in mind, they uh, Brian finds a truck, a snowmaking truck that makes fake snow, and so he drives it to go and well, obviously throw snow into the blob to finally kill it. So originally that seems really ridiculous, like why would a snowmaking truck work, right? Well, I did look it up, and so just so you know, obviously for any freezing temperature, it has to be 32 degrees or below to be considered freezing enough to start creating snow, or at least below 28 degrees. So these actual snowmaking trucks are actually kept at that temperature in order to make snow. So although it seems really freaking ridiculous to go and bring out a snowmaking machine to throw snow at a blob that is weak against the cold, it actually kind of works out an application. However, where it does get a little more stupid again is that to defeat the blob, Meg takes some C4 from a soldier that's missing an arm who's just like, help me. And she's like, no, fuck you. Like,
yeah, fuck you, I just want the explosive.
Yeah, basically. And so she puts the explosives on the truck for the blob to attack it so it explodes. And eventually that does happen. And like I'm not gonna go over the whole like her harrowing scene and whatnot. You'll just see it for yourself when you check out the movie. But like when that finally does happen and the blob does attack the truck with the C4 on it, it also blows up the truck. It happens to make this combination where it does fully freeze the blob, and that's how it defeats the blob. And it's like this epic explosion, and it's a really fantastically shot scene. Like it's an intense scene because like Meg barely escapes it because her foot gets caught by like a rubber cord, and so like Brian has to save her in time. So it's like really like well acted and really well done, and it's a very kick-ass defeat of a monster too. Like because afterwards, like it's like the blob is all crystallized and it's like these pink crystals, but like but you're kind of like, would it actually like create like a freezing explosion like that? Because I feel like there would be more than just like it would instantly freeze it, like. But again, you got to kind of like suspend your what you disbelief at that point and just accept that it's a ridiculous movie, because really at the end of the day it's a kick-ass defeat of this horrifying monster which solidifies the Blob as an any season B movie horror monster delight, and I cannot recommend it any highly more than that. The only other con I got is that the movie does show its age here and there, by the fact that the mom lets the two young siblings walk alone at night to a movie theater, one with his headphones on the whole time. But whatever, he gets killed, so obviously lesson learned there. Um,
mm-hmm.
But that being said, that's my review of the Blob. I mean, it's honestly probably one of the best remakes I have ever seen. It is definitely close to my heart. It's one of the coolest movies I've seen, and it's one of just like the funnest ones to watch too, just because it's such a unique idea of a monster that seems so plain and bland. But like seriously, check it out if you haven't. Um, just a few
I'll have
quick.
to go check it out now.
Do it. Like I think you would enjoy it, man. I honestly think you would.
All right, I will. I will.
Do it. Do it now.
I will. Yelling at me.
So a few interesting facts. The partially dissolved but still alive soldier was performed by stuntman Noble Craig, a triple amputee who's lost both legs, an arm, and an eye while serving in the Vietnam War.
Holy shit!
Wow, groovy, man. I mean, not that that happened, but like
Yeah.
the fact that like that's just a really like cool fact is what I mean.
Yeah.
According to an interview on the Australian Blu-ray, Chuck Russell deliberately stole a page from the Hitchcock playbook by killing the character that everyone identify as the hero halfway into the film, so everyone would go, "Geez, if he could die, anyone could."
Yeah.
Two minor roles were played by Playboy playmates. Vicky DeSoto was played by Erica Elianake from July 1989, and Susie was played by Julie McCullough from February 1986. And last one of the film's U.S. 19 million budget, U.S. $9 million budget went toward visual effects.
Nice.
Would you like that? Do you want to read off any?
Yeah. Chad McQueen was offered the part of Brian Flagg, but turned it down for two reasons. One, he disliked the script, and two, his strict policy of never performing in any production based on or inspired by his father Steve McQueen's work. It's because Steve McQueen played in the original.
Yep. I was gonna say because of Steve, right?
Yep. Steve.
So if you want to check out the Blob, it is free on Crackle. For rent, it is available on Vudu, Amazon Prime for $2.99, and on YouTube and Google Play for $3.99. So with that being said, ghouls, gals, creeps, mutants, we are brought to another end of our episode of the Punk Rock Horror Podcast. Sincerely, from the bottom of our hearts, we do hope you're all staying safe and you're staying okay. And we all you're staying mentally okay too. We all know that these are hard times right now in a lot of different ways, and with a lot of abrupt, stalls to a lot of daily routines. It's definitely getting to a lot of us in a lot of different ways. So just know our love and heart goes out to all of you, and we hope you're doing all right. I won't do the usual spiel, just because I feel like it's not needed for this one. Cody, is there anything you want to say?
No, just stay safe. Stay smart. This will end sometime. Just be smart.
Just be smart. Just be smart.
Like, do your research. Make sure you're reading up on it. Wear your mask. Stay clean. Like, we'll all get through this. Like, just be smart at what you're doing. Okay, we can make it through it.
Exactly. Last thing I'm gonna say is real quick. So. The streaming has been a little askew recently, so I've been doing the streams just because I have the availability to it. That looks like that might be changing this coming week. So right now, when you're listening, would be the week that it's changing around. As soon as I know more about how my schedule is going to look, I'll fix it the stream that way. I also might just switch it to YouTube so it's more easy to access. I'm also going to try to make this easier for Cody to jump onto. Because Cody, I know you've been wanting to as well to help out.
Yeah, I'm hoping. Hopefully, I'll have more of a set schedule, and I know what's going on after this coming week.
But biggest thing is we listen really closely to all of you. So if you're checking out the streams and if you have any feedback, let us know. Are you liking it? Would you like us to do anything else? Let us know. This is purely something that we're doing to try to help all you out and help you guys feel not so alone right now. I'm sure you guys already have your own favorite streamers, but if you want to come check us out, please just keep posted about that, and we'll let you know as we go. Again, Ghouls, Gals, Creeps, and Mutants, thank you again for letting us hang out with you and talk about horror with you, and we will talk about horror with you next time.
Bye.
Bye.